Welcome back to Workflows and Espressos, everyone. I am incredibly excited about this episode for multiple reasons. Ashley Ching from Inhaven is here. Before I even introduce you, Ashley, I was gonna get into all the things that I love about you, so I had to finish your name and introduction. But I love working with you for so many reasons. Outpost is a customer of Inhaven's. Ashley, you're such an incredible friend in the industry and mentor to me. And you have built such a cool brand and you're a badass female founder. So, all of these things, you're the trifecta and you have been supporting workflows and espressos for a long time via ads. So, to have you here for a long form episode means so much to me, and I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your very busy schedule, both the fact that you run a business and also the fact that you have 4 children. So, let's get into it, and also, I really would love to start with your founder story as well. I think that you have one of the most interesting, unique founder stories in the industry, so tell us who you are, what you do, let's get into it.
Well, first, Megan, I feel equally as impressed with you. So thank you for your kind words. I feel like you are making such a huge impact on our industry with this podcast and now becoming part of the Verma board, which is amazing. We need leaders like you out there helping to really elevate our industry and transform it for the better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a very non-traditional, I guess, founder story. My background is in merchandising. I spent most of my career from Tiffany and Company to the Home Depot sourcing products around the world. So I came into this industry really from a guest perspective. I have 4 little kids, and so when we travel, we no longer stay in hotels; we stay in vacation rentals. And we would find places on listing sites like Airbnb or Vrbo, and the pictures look great, and the descriptions look awesome, the reviews were good, and the location was perfect. And more often than not, we would show up to really crappy beds and
Mhm.
maybe pots and pans. And it was so frustrating because you only have so much vacation. And every time my husband and I would leave saying, gosh, we just wish we booked a hotel. Like,
Mhm.
this is just it was so unfortunate. And then we had Ellison stays on the other end of the spectrum, which we just never knew what we were walking into. And so I'm a lifelong merchant. I've spent my career sourcing products around the world. So I'm naturally curious, how do people source products for these vacation rentals? And I spoke to dozens and dozens of hosts and property managers, and every single response to me was consistent. It's a nightmare.
Mhm.
I have no idea what I'm buying. What works for my own home doesn't work for my vacation rentals. I kept hearing the word durable come up over and over again. And what was interesting is my last career was I was head of merchandising at one of Home Depot's private label brands, which took me all over the world visiting manufacturers. And at each manufacturer you would visit, they had 2 lines, one for retail stores like Amazon, Macy's, Walmart, and then one for the hotels and restaurants. And the hotels and restaurants line was super durable, really could work in commercial grade laundry facilities, if you're talking about linens. And so what I realized is I need to bring what's available to hotels and restaurants to this vacation rental industry.
Mhm.
The vacation rental industry is no longer a cottage industry. It is now 24% of total lodging spend. And so we really need to be able to offer these products so that we can continue to grow as an industry. And so these homes have the right products in place.
So I'm one of 4 siblings, and all of my siblings have children, and they've said the same thing to me. They know that I work in the industry, and they're always like, "Man, every time I stay in a vacation rental, it kind of sucks a lot of," right? It's very hit or miss. Like, you either have this incredible experience with, you know what to expect, it matches the pictures, the host, whether it's a professional property manager or rental by owner, is responsive. There's, these checklists that are in guests' minds, and I think that the way that you came into the industry, having faced this problem as a consumer, has allowed you to build this really cool company that's helping professional property managers, myself included, through this lens of standardization, which I want to talk to you about because standardization means something a little bit differently to you. And I don't know, it is this problem, especially coming back from Verma, which we've talked a little bit about. I feel like I had so many different conversations with friends in the industry that are on the property manager side, and they've just said, it is so hard to get all of our owners on board with what our guests really want, which is this like standardization, this trust that they can assure that what their experience online was matches when they arrive, especially when they've just built up this trip for months and months and months and have spent all this money, and it's so hard to do without significant operational challenges. And I have other friends that are texting me saying, "Hey, where do you order X things from? And how do you streamline this? And where do you store everything?" Like, it is this never-ending puzzle that I feel like every time you get close to completing it, it's like somebody adds 500 more pieces. So I want just your perspective on this in general and how you've kind of come in and flipped a switch on the overall, like, operational standardization of the industry, and yeah, what are your thoughts?
So I agree with you. Coming out of Verma, we really heard a consistent narrative, and we've heard it for years, right? The industry's need for one, standardization, two, professionalization, and three, coming together. Everyone, we just continue to hear this. And I really believe that we're diagnosing the wrong issue. Instead of standards, we need to think about how do we deliver certainty in the industry. Standards
Mhm,
are a means to deliver certainty. Instead of professionalization and talking about professionalization, we need to talk about how do we deliver hospitality service. And
mhm.
instead of doing things as a collective, you need trailblazers to really come in to pave the way for others. And so I guess I'd love to start talking just about standards versus certainty, because I think there's a big misnomer here. And I'd love to just kind of dive deeper there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that, right? Because I think as a collective, we're always talking about building trust, and there are so many different I talk to friends in the industry frequently too, like, it's almost like everybody's created these little pockets within the industry of the people that they reach out to when they ever face an issue, right? Like, I know that I have my text group. Anytime we face a problem, I'm, like, firing off a text message. "Rachel, have you guys ever dealt with this? Robin, what do you think here? Near, what do you think about that?" Right? Like, it is this our industry is so closely collaborative, which I absolutely love, and this seems to be the one issue that we all can't figure out how to solve for, and it's exactly like what you're saying. This standardization is a means to creating certainty and to
Yes.
building trust with your guests, and what I've found is this isn't just something that benefits a guest's life. It ultimately benefits homeowners, of course. When you have the certainty when you arrive, homeowners are consistently anxious that we are not able to deliver the level of service to them and to the guests that we promise from the very beginning when we sign the contract. And
Yep.
then we have the employee side, which is so difficult in and of itself because in such a taxing and draining business, we are constantly thinking of ways to make employees' lives easier. Like, there's so much stuff that we'll never be able, like, we can't change the fact they have to talk to angry guests sometimes, and we can't change the fact that owners are needy, but we can make things more efficient. And to find a solution, which is like creating this trust and this certainty that benefits employees, guests, and homeowners, is such a difficult balance. And then to find somebody within the industry who has already done this is also really hard, or who has the same definition of standards that you might, right? Or the person, 6,000 miles away on the other side of the world might, right? And that's difficult. So,
Right. Yeah. So I think, really, I think there's a misnomer about the hotel industry. People say they have standards that the vacation rental industry should strive to emulate.
mhm,
The truth is, just to the point of before, is standards are really the means to the end. The success of the hotel industry, and for all industries for that matter, if you think about restaurants, cruise lines, timeshares, etc., these industries use standards to convey quality tiers to a customer. And customers just want to know, what are they getting for when they put, money down on a place. And
mhm,
so, for example, in the hotel industry, there's an entire chain scale ranging from luxury down to the economy tier. And so there are different standards for each of those tiers. You've got, the luxury, and you've got the Four Seasons down to the La Quintas and Motel 6.
mhm,
And so what the beauty of these brands have done is that they provide clear identifiers to the guests to know what they're paying for in terms of the quality of the product and the service levels. So if you pay $700, $750 a night, you're getting a luxury experience at a Four Seasons, and you're happy with that.
mhm.
also grateful for the La Quintas in the middle of Pennsylvania when I have to go there for a soccer tournament with my daughter. I'm happy to pay $120 a night. I'm happy to pay that money. I don't want to stay at Bob's Motel. I don't know what I'm going to get at Bob's, but I know I'm going to get, a comfortable bed at La Quinta. So I think that the problem with the vacation rental guests is we're not addressing what they're paying for.
Mhm.
Like when you show up, you don't know, okay, what are you going to get for a $650 a night place versus a $120 a night place? So,
This is such an interesting dilemma because, and you and I have talked about this, homeowners always think that their house is the Four Seasons.
right.
Right? Like, that is this issue that we've run into, like, both at 360 Blue and at Outpost, is you want to develop both a pricing model, an operational model, how much time you're spending on a house, right? Like, you wanna set your costs for each house depending on how much they're bringing in, and I think it's so important in general for managers to just understand how much each property is costing them to manage at the end of the day. But do you run into this with your clients where they're like, "Ashley, listen, you know, this house is really the La Quinta, but the owner thinks it's the Four Seasons. Like, how do you think that we develop these, this certainty with them?"
With homeowners, right? A homeowner would know that if they're buying La Quinta products, they can't slap a Four Seasons logo on their property, right?
Mhm.
Because in the hotel industry and even the restaurant industry, it's super clear. They have brand standard guidelines. Like if you want to be at a certain level, this is what you need to buy. And so I think this, to your point earlier, by being very transparent and clear on what standards are required to be at certain levels within the vacation rental industry, it really clears up the back and forth that you're having with the homeowners of you need to upgrade this and then they push back. If it's clear from the front to from the start, like these are the standards that are required at a luxury property versus a economy, everyone's clear on what's needed and you can't skip a level and still, you can't put microfiber sheets and call it luxury in a place.
Mhm.
I think, and this really does, to your point earlier, it addresses the guest issue, right? The guest, I really think from a comfort of the stay, from the bed, bath, and kitchen, they're not looking for unique experiences there. In the bed, they're not looking for round beds or water beds. They really probably could care less that you've got like some special Chinese tea machine in the kitchen, right?
Mhm.
They want to know that when they arrive at the property that they have a comfortable night's sleep, a fully stocked bathroom, and a fully stocked kitchen. And so that's, they want that and they want to know at what quality tier, what are they paying for? Are they going to get that fully stocked kitchen at a La Quinta level or at a Four Seasons level? And then I think once we're transparent with the guests and the property managers, these aren't just for the guests and the property managers. To your point before, these standards also deliver certainty to the operations team, giving them efficiencies and in the purchasing and operations. And then it also delivers certainty to the owners on when things need to be replaced in the home, they know exactly what they're going to be replaced with.
When you're working with customers, and this is like the hardest question that I feel like I can never find the right answer to. Everybody's level of Four Seasons versus La Quinta and something in between seems different, right? And is it determined by price of the home? Is it determined by the decor that's in the property, the location, what amenities it has? Like, do you have a lot of your customers that ask you these questions throughout the process? Like, well, how do I know if this home should get like top of the line versus like bottom of the line? Or did they develop their own like tiers, so to speak? Or do you help them do that?
Yeah, we really help them, but I think this is kind of going into like the next portion, this beautiful entrance
Yeah,
into the idea of like professionalization. So, what does professionalization mean? It's all about delivering standards.
Mhm.
And so, certainty comes with the products that are in the home and then also the service levels. Like, what
Mhm.
type of service levels? And I think, people talk a lot about the vacation rentals needs to professionalize, but what we're really addressing is just the wide range of service levels that you can experience in each of these homes. Like you've got these first time hosts that, I mean, to be quite frank, a lot of them don't know what they're doing to these, professional property managers that have, 200 people on the ground ready to help you, or not 200 probably, but 50. And so what's interesting, if we look at the hospitality industry, if we go back to the restaurants and hotels, I believe that service levels are really the only thing that differentiates the tierings of offerings. So if you look at the restaurant industry, right, you have the tiers are you've got fast food to casual to upscale casual, and then the highest end is fine dining. And so you've got restaurants like that are Michelin star restaurants, like Will Guidaro's Unreasonable Hospitality, 11 Madison Park, right? And so
Mhm.
they deliver, you're buying a $300 meal and you have a certain level of expectation when you walk into that.
Mhm.
Compared to McDonald's, when you really just interact with a kiosk these days, and you might see one person in front of desk. You
Right.
would expect someone, a server at McDonald's, when you walk away to go to the bathroom, to refold your napkin and put it on a chair, right? And you would expect that level of service at a Will Guidara's, 11th Madison Park.
Mhm.
Well, those are the key difference in service offerings is 11 Madison Park has 10 people watching over you. And so the bill could be $1,000 versus McDonald's has zero service and, costs $10 a meal.
Mhm.
And that's the same with hotels. Like when you walk into a Hammond Resort or a Ritz-Carlton, you've got a lot of people greeting you before you get to the front desk.
Mhm.
Versus a La Quinta, which you might just have one person front of house.
Mhm.
Really feel that the difference levels in restaurants and hotels is how many people you have to help you, the number of people versus, and that it helps guide expectations, right? A guest knows that a La Quinta at an economy hotel, they're not going to have 10 people greeting them, but they're
Yep.
going to have that at the Aman Resort. So these service levels really help convey quality to the guest.
For managers, it's interesting, right? Because so many we have different tiers of inventory. And so one thing that I feel really passionate about is tailoring your level of service depending on what type of tier it is and not just like what's in the property, right? Like literally your level of service. So a lot of times, and I've talked about this a million times, your top 80% of your revenue is coming from the top 20% of your homes. So culling out those and providing the best possible experience to that top 20%, the one where if you lose one of these houses, it might be equivalent to losing 10 of your lowest income producers. And a lot of the time, right, this income is directly correlated with the location of the house, the amenities like we talked about earlier and the furnishings, like how great it is, right? Your nicest properties are making the most amount of money, and so providing a different level of service, and this is where I think managers can improve a lot because a lot of the times you see the same level of service across every single property type
Yeah.
even when they're different, and a homeowner that might be have a projection of $50,000 is getting the same level of service as a homeowner that has a projection of $500,000 and bridging that gap, and it goes exactly back to what you said, setting the conversation very early and very often with the homeowner before you sign the contract.
Yeah, and I think to your point, from a guest perspective, the certainty comes with the quality of products in the home and also the service levels. So there
Mhm.
could be like, when people go to book a vacation rental, you have to be very clear on, filter of here's what types of products you're going to find in the home and here's the service levels.
Yep.
So that they're very clear on what they're walking into and what they're paying for.
Mhm.
Um, we talk a lot about, at least in our internal team, and we get this question I hear about it in the industry is, why do these large national public management companies like Asana or Vacasa fail or they're failing, right?
Mhm.
And I think the crux of their failure is their promotion on using technology to service that guest. So
Yes.
if a guest books $1,000 a night place, there's no amount of technology that can like satisfy their needs if a coffee maker is broken or a water heater is out, right? And so I think in the vacation rental industry, that's why we believe that the future of just service levels is really driven by these small local operating companies that can deliver those service levels. And I think to your point earlier, you can tier them based on, your top homes versus your, homes that aren't driving a lot of revenue. But I
Mhm.
think be very clear to the guest, what they should expect when booking that home.
Yeah, I really like it from the guest perspective because a lot of times I think managers, like myself included, we get caught up in owner communication, right? And the owner gets prioritized over the guest, which I think is important in many circumstances, but like we wouldn't have owners without guests, obviously, right? It's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And having clarity and transparency with the guest is just as important as having clarity and transparency with the owner. And if we're providing negative guest experiences, or if a guest is, they feel like they booked X and they received Y, then they ultimately leave a bad review, which the owner sees anyway. And then we end up in trouble with the owner. And it is like this vicious cycle. So I think, first step to me kind of seems to be tiering these properties, right? Like if you are interested in developing the certainty, really building trust with your guests, your homeowners, and employees at the end of the day. Like, okay, what bucket do your properties fall into, right? How many of these like tier one incredible homes do you have where you think like we cannot churn a single one? I want to make sure that they have Ritz Carlton, Four Seasons, auberge level service, and then what kind of falls in the middle there, and then what's kind of the bottom, right? Which is obviously we still took the home; it's worth us managing, but we are not gonna spend the operational time and the financial money to pay for this auberge level of service when they really should get, like, a La Quinta level of service, which, we're still gonna give them a great experience, but it does look different, and then how do we communicate that? I think
And
it's step 2.
you're not alone. I mean, we work with so many property managers that have over 100, 150 listings, and they have, 20 maybe very high end, and then they have sort of 80 standard. And so they have their own tiers, but how do you communicate that to the guests and to the homeowner?
Mhm.
Like when it comes to service levels, it's all about how many people do you have overseeing this home,
Yep.
right? When I think about like Rachel and Rob at Abode, luxury rentals. I think I was listening to one podcast where she was mentioning her service levels, where a guest called because something was wrong with the house. And the person on the other end talking to that guest was like, it'll be quicker for me just to come and meet with you than to talk about it over the phone. And in 2 minutes, he or she was there at the house, ready to talk to them. Now
Mhm.
that's service, right? That's the 11 Madison Park level of service.
Mhm.
You've got to be able to communicate that. And I think it has so much to do with how many dedicated resources do you have to oversee in these houses? How quickly can someone get there? A Vacasa has 40,000 listings, right? And they have about 2,000 employees working with these listings if you exclude all the cleaning people. And so there you're looking at, 20 homes to one employee versus a higher end location with this local hospitality scene that's all in market might have, 5 homes to every one employee. So
Mhm.
there's a way that I think we can sort of systematically assign the service levels based on how many people that you have in that local market to support that home.
Mhm. And
And
I
what
think
there. Mhm.
recording this and communicating it to your team is so important, right? Like, okay, this is which bucket, so to speak, each home falls into, and this is the level of service that we're dedicating to each one. If a home is tier 1, like they get X, Y, and Z. If a home is tier 2, they get just Y and Z. And that like Rachel, I stayed with her, my family and I, there were 16 of us, 17 of us last February, and we stayed in one of her, like, probably would be considered a tier 1 home, like, very expensive for 1 week, but there was a lot of us, and my family and my nephew is like, "We have to go back to this house every single year. It's the most like, it's the coolest house that I've ever stayed in." But a couple things that they did, which I'm sure is unique to, like, a home of this caliber, right? There were fresh flowers in every single room when we checked in. They
Wow.
mailed us a road trip. She knew that Clark and I were driving, so she mailed us a cooler, an Abode branded cooler with road trip snacks, like Abode branded waters and road trip games. So we had snacks and games to play in the car. Then the fresh flowers greeted us upon arrival, and then at one point, I mean, Rachel herself was texting me throughout the stay, and at one point I said, like, "I hate this is so annoying, but do you mind getting the snow off the balconies because my family wants to sit outside." I mean, keep in mind it was like 14. It was so cold. And she had 2 people come over themselves within 10 minutes, and they had shoveled off the entire back porch. And when I think of, like, Four Seasons level of service, like, these are things. I mean, she went above and beyond, as Abode does, but right, there was a certain level of expectation for the patriarch of our group who had paid for the trip, right? He's like, "I spent a lot of money to come here, like, we all flew out, we paid for the lift tickets, the plane tickets, there were 17 of us, and the level of service that we got matched what the effort that it takes to go on that type of vacation." I feel like for a guest, that is oftentimes what they want, right? Is something that matches what they're spending, and then
Mhm.
the effort that it takes to get to that destination, and
Totally.
just someone to no, like, what I love about Abode and what we really try to do at Outpost is to anticipate needs, and I
Mhm.
think that that is what really sets managers apart.
And this is to your point, this is what hotels and restaurants have been doing for years, right?
Mhm.
If you go to 11 Madison Park, you have a certain level of expectation versus McDonald's. If you go to an Aman resort, you have a certain level of expectations versus, a La Quinta. When you go stay with Rachel and Rob at a boat, like you have a certain level of expectations versus, $100 a night place in the middle of Pennsylvania. And so what we haven't failed to do as an industry is be able to clearly communicate on that chain scale that level of the certainty for the guests in terms of quality and service levels. And
Mhm.
really, what we're doing at Inhaven is to work with these groups of professional property managers like Rachel and Rob to kind of set our own path and create this new approach to delivering certainty.
What I love about Inhaven, which I don't even know if I've told you this, but your model that allows vacation rental managers to show the uniqueness of the stay and the experience within areas other than the bed, bath, and kitchen is so cool to me. So that is what you're mainly focused on, right? Is setting these standards, this certainty for the bed, bath, and kitchen and helping professional property managers do this. And allowing them to show, like, the uniqueness, like I said, in their other areas, right? Like, nobody wants this unique experience in the bathroom. But
Mhm.
what is cool about your management company is the team that you have and how you speak to guests and the tech stack that you're using and the views from the property, right? Like, those are things that we want to feel unique, not necessarily, like, the bed that we get into at the end of the night.
Yeah, it's such a balance in the vacation rental industry. I mean, I feel like the hotel approach has been very cookie cutter. Like you can stay at a Hyatt hotel in Tokyo or Cincinnati and you have no idea where you are, right? There's
Mhm,
no special localization. The guests want to feel like a local when they stay in vacation rentals. They don't want to compromise on like their basic needs of sleep, eating, and bathing.
mhm.
And so I think it's a balance of let's set the standards for places that can be standardized and the guest actually wants it as they want to know what they're walking into in those three experiences versus being more creative and taking a design, approach on the other areas of the home.
How did you decide on Bed Bath& and Kitchen? Like, when you were creating In Haven and really, like, setting out to decide what your mission and your vision was gonna be, were you like, "Okay, I imagine my family and I staying at a vacation rental, and we love the view, and we love living like a local, but I hate that," like, was it mainly the beds or the level like, the number of pots and pans when you checked in? Like, what was this frustrating point that helped create this company?
Yeah, I think it was that our basic needs weren't being met. Like we
Mhm,
stayed in amazing places, but we couldn't enjoy the gathering spaces or we couldn't enjoy that outdoor like view because we couldn't get a good night's sleep. Or
mhm,
we found ourselves like dropping things off, going to the bathroom, seeing that there was nothing there from shampoo, like not even a starter kit. And you'd have to then you're somewhere that you've never been before and you're having to find the local store, the local grocery store to go get these like basics, which is so frustrating. I mean, even if you show up at the lowest of the lowest hotels, there's basic things there. They even have coffee,
yeah.
right? Well, it was just such a frustrating experience arriving to the rental. It was these are beautiful rentals, but just the basic needs of like just a good night's sleep, you know, shampoo in the shower and just basic kitchenware was missing. And those are the things that often aren't photographed. You can't touch and feel in bed. Like Verma, we rented a place for the team to stay in downtown Phoenix near the convention center. The pictures looked amazing.
Mhm.
Everyone complained they could not sleep at night because it was like the pillows were awful, the beds were a bit creaky, and it was the things I just can't believe these things aren't brought up into the reviews. I think the whole review system is broken.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was so disappointing that my team wasn't able to sleep well. But
Mm,
yet we had really cool space and the kitchen was awesome and there were all these like games to play throughout the rental, but the basic need of not having a place to sleep, I wish we stayed at the hotel instead. And so that's what's so disappointing about the vacation rental experience. And I think that's where we really need to come together or, yeah, in smaller groups to kind of figure out, okay, how are we going to create more certainty around the quality of products in the home and around the service levels that will not only make our guests happier, but will help, our teams and our owners along the way.
it's so sad because I am one of these people. I mean, obviously, I don't have kids yet, so Clark and I can get by staying in a hotel, but I would prefer to stay in a hotel like 10 times out of 10. And I hate that because I'm like, this is the industry. And it is exactly because of what you're saying, because you just don't know. I mean, I'm embarrassed to admit this. We stayed with Vacasa for Clark's cousin's wedding last October and he booked it. He didn't tell me. Like he told us that he was booking a vacation rental and he found it on Airbnb and he ended up booking and it was just like last minute. We were going to stay in a hotel, whatever. Like I said, I'm embarrassed to tell this story, but we ended up staying with Vacasa. We didn't sleep. There was sand all over the floors. The kitchen was like I didn't even wanna go in there because it was so foul and just unclean. The refrigerator, like, looked like it hadn't seen a Clorox wipe in many, many moons. And it is experiences like this and like yours that drive people to the hotel industry, and it's funny, right? Because we often think, we're really against these rental by owners. We're really against like Verbo and Airbnb and they're the enemy. And I think in so many ways that hotels are who we're ultimately against. And it is because of our own doing that we can't establish this level of service and both in how we're communicating and treating our guests upon arrival but also in what they can expect when they get to the house, and that is, like, this trust that you have in a hotel where you always know what you're gonna get when you book it online or you call them
Right.
and you book your room, and what I think is so interesting about this, like, mission that you have at Inhaven is you have handpicked property managers to really pioneer this vision that you have over the last it's been, like, over a year since you really, like, dug into this. So, tell me a little bit about that, like, this
Yeah.
collective, because you obviously know collaboration is so big in our industry.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's just so much talk about doing everything together or collectively. And I think when you try to do something for everyone, it's impossible to serve. You basically serve nobody. So what we're doing at Inhaven is we're building an ecosystem with our group of local professional property managers that's premised on three main values, I guess. One is that they're whole homes and vacation destinations. They're managed by these local professional property management teams, right? The team is they are local to service that customer, that guest, and they're committed to these standards for the bed, bath, and kitchen. And so this ecosystem that we're creating of these property managers really won't apply to everyone. But we think there's a silent group out there that doesn't have a very loud voice, like a loud voice like the Barbie house and the treat house or the suburban get rich quick scheme that we see, with a lot of the listings on an Airbnb. And these are, we also see that there's owners that want to rent their vacation rental out, right? And they basically want to rent it out for the 48 weeks a year that they don't use it. And they care about how their homes are being treated. And they want to work with professional property managers that are delivering these amazing hotel experiences. And so we can't change the entire vacation rental industry. It's way too broad, but we think that 45% at least of the vacation rental industry revenues are professionally managed. And so we can start this movement with these local professional property managers. So we're getting started on this. We're working with a group of trailblazing property managers that we think, this ecosystem can grow fairly rapidly as it's very different than what you find with the Airbnb ecosystem.
Mhm.
I just heard a podcast with Brian Chesky on, and he's kind of saying, "All right, well, the individual host has such high ratings," and I think this is just such a misnomer because I think that the Casas of the world and some of these larger national property managers are really, pushing down the ratings. But you've got these local teams like Robin and Rachel at Moving Mountains, like, Abode, like Beverly at Best Nest that are there and they're providing way higher service levels and providing way greater experiences than any individual could offer.
Mhm.
Uh, in that market. So, these are people with vans that drive people, they just have so many more services than an individual could offer. And I think, we really want to work with that type of property manager to build out this new ecosystem.
This, uh, collaboration, I think, like, so many times we've talked about standardization as a collective and, like, what this means and how each of us defines it and how we think we're gonna reach it and what we can do and how much it's gonna cost, and to find property managers who are ready and willing to take this leap and trailblaze for the rest of us, I think is this a huge movement that we're gonna see in the industry over the next several months, and honestly, like, peace of mind more than anything, like, when we're gonna go out and, put a big initiative in place or spend a significant amount of money, it is so comforting to know that somebody else has done it before or that you even have support from someone else, and I think that, like, this is what we've needed as an industry to drive this forward as a whole, right? Like, once we know, okay, the best they can do it, and they've done it well, and their guests are happier, and their owners are happier, and their team is happier, and it's changed things for them, like, now the rest of us can kind of jump on this bandwagon, and that's what I'm so excited about, and so I can't wait to see how it's gonna shake out in the next couple of months. So what do you foresee at Inhaven in the next year?
So we're really focused on building out this ecosystem. That's, a very different ecosystem, as I mentioned, than Airbnb. We're very focused on how do we highlight and promote these local property managers that provide these amazing hospitality services and that are committed to standards. So we're really focused on building out this ecosystem. Right now, we've got over 2,000 properties fully standardized on Inhaven, and we think we can grow this, fairly quickly over the next 6 to 12 months. And so it's really kind of continuing on this path with these trailblazers to build out this new ecosystem that, we feel like there are just so many people in the industry, so many professional property managers, that are just you don't as a guest, you can't even find them, right? You go to these listings on Airbnb and Vrbo, you have no idea who's behind those stays. Completely overlooked. And so we want to highlight the amazing things that they're doing. But we feel like from my perspective as a guest, I want to know where these people are. I want to stay with these people. And so let's create this new ecosystem together.
Yeah, it's bringing back trust in vacation rentals, I think,
Mm.
at the end of the day, like, we want when you're stacked up against a hotel or rental by owner or you're looking at something on Airbnb, like, when you go to book that home, you know what you're going to get. You know you're gonna get a good night's sleep. You know that when you go to cook a meal, there is the appropriate level and number of housewares and that they're clean and ready for you. You know that the towels that you're using when you get out of the hot tub or the shower are nice, good quality, not microfiber, and I think, like, once these boxes are checked, we can really start to work on the other things that make us unique, like, that's what we really wanna spend time on as local property managers is telling you where to go out to eat and
Yeah.
making sure that you have these, road trip snacks when you book your stay if we know that you're driving, like, those are the fun parts, right? We don't want to go and work on sheets that have holes in them all over again or get a complaint about a flat pillow, like, these are the things that I think can ultimately increase, like, quality of life for employees as well.
Quality of life, and it will just save people significant time. I mean, once
Mhm.
you have these standards in place and you've kind of tiered your service levels based on the type of property you're servicing, just all that transparency will save so much time with not only the guests, they know what they're walking into. They don't have, there's aligned expectations, but then also with your team and your homeowners.
100%.
Mhm.
Ashley, I have absolutely loved getting to have you on and talk more about Inhaven and about what you're passionate about in the industry and how you're making these changes for all of us. So thank you so much for coming on. And I would love to have you back maybe in like 6 months so we can
Yeah.
see how the ecosystem is coming along and check in and just kind of see where things are.
Would love to join you again. I mean, this is just a great and Megan, thanks so much for taking the time to talk. And I know you're passionate about this, so it's always nice to talk to someone who's equally passionate about just bringing more certainty to our industry.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, this is pre-recorded because I'm currently enjoying a pina colada on the beach right now at my honeymoon.
Yeah.
So, see you guys in a couple of weeks. I know everyone's like, "Man, you didn't talk about you for 5 straight minutes when you started the podcast." Robin is probably praising right now. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Ashley, for being here, and can't wait to be back with you all in a couple of weeks.
Congratulations on your upcoming wedding.
Thank you.
Take care.